This is the Minecraft Stripelands. A type of terrain that only generates 16 million blocks out in the overworld. It's Bedrock Edition's version of the Java Farlands, but unlike Java, it was never removed and replaced with a world border, and still exists to this day. And today, I plan to travel all the way out here in survival hardcore Minecraft and walk around in the Stripelands. But that should be impossible. Blocks here don't have collision. Anything that spawns falls through to the void. And no, I don't mean fly around with an elytra out here. Anyone can do that. I've found a way to walk on solid ground. But I can't get ahead of myself. I don't actually have a survival world to do this in anymore. So I just made a new one, and I'm gonna need to gear up to make it to the Stripelands. So let's get to it. So after crafting some basic tools, I decided to leave the snow biome that I spawned in, as it would be kind of annoying to do literally anything here. Okay, I'm gonna need a lot of gear for this. So I grabbed up some coal and some iron and smelted it up enough to make a full set of iron armor so I could travel deeper into the caves to find diamonds. Why is it just genuinely one diamond? After I had enough for a full set, I returned to the surface and crafted up myself some armor. I then made a farm for some wheat and bred up a bunch of cows for bookshelves and XP so I could enchant all of my gear with Protection 4 and Unbreaking 3, as I would need it. And so after a few in-game days, I had a full set of armor. I also managed to obtain a Riptide 3 book, which, if used on a trident, as well as an elytra, would allow me to travel thousands of blocks in just minutes. This would be really useful for traveling to the Stripelands, but I didn't even have a trident yet, so I needed to go get one. Luckily on Bedrock Edition, trident rounds drop tridents very commonly, so after killing just a few drowned, I was able to get my first one. And with this, I would now just need a bunch of elytra. And to do that, I was just going to need to beat the game. Okay, let's go to the Nether. There was a few things I needed to do in the Nether. The first was grab ender pearls, and after completing that, I looked for a fortress and grabbed blaze rods. Now I had the resources to go to the end, but there were still a few things I wanted to get. So I found a bastion. And you see, I didn't really need anything from the bastion for this journey, but I was kind of just exploring this for fun. As you see, I commonly get bored of my survival worlds and usually just stop playing them altogether. That's why I've set myself this enormous task of going to the Stripelands. Now, on the way back to my portal, I was able to find a few pieces of ancient debris, and then I returned to the overworld. After making a netherite chestplate, it was time to actually get to work. Now, before I could go to the end, I would need mending, as my armor was kind of damaged and I would also need it for the elytra. And well, since the easiest way to get mending is to a villager, I began re-rolling a librarian villager until I got a mending book. It actually did not take that long, but I didn't have the emeralds to buy them. So, since I've been trying to have fun in this world, instead of just making a farm for emeralds, I decided I would do a raid since there was a pillager outpost right next to my base. And actually doing a raid would be pretty handy, as I could get a few totems just in case I would need them in the future. And of course, the first pillager I came across was a raid captain, meaning I immediately got an ominous bottle. I then went and started a raid at the nearby village where I'd gotten my mending villager. Where are these raiders? And after a few waves, I was able to actually get enough emeralds for my whole armor set, as well as a few totems and also a saddle, which I'll explain why I need that later. I then returned to where my mending villager was and grabbed 4 books, one for each of my armor pieces. Now, after adding them onto my armor, I went into the nether to grab quartz, as using the experience that quartz drops would repair all of my armor really fast. Going back to nether was also kind of an excuse for me to get more ancient debris so I could get more netherite, which I honestly didn't need any netherite for this, but I kind of just wanted to have some as it looked cool. And now I was able to get going to the end. And so, I crafted up the eyes and entered the end port. Destroying the crystals took basically no time at all with my crossbow. Wait, watch this. OP trick shot. As soon as the remainder of the crystals were destroyed, the dragon fell soon after. But that was the easy part of the end. I would now need to travel all the way to the Outer End Islands and collect elytras. I was planning to get a full shulker full of elytras. Now honestly, I think I would need more than that, but if I tried to get more, I would probably just give up and get bored. So I was going to gather myself a full shulker of elytras, which would already take a lot of time. Now, once I entered, I didn't immediately see any end cities, which would mean I would need to travel around, and this would take a while. But the thing is, once I got my first elytra, it would be a little bit easier, as I did bring a couple of firework rockets. So after bridging for a little bit, I found my first end ship. And I would also need a lot of shulker boxes to fill my ender chest with all of the loot I would need to bring. I actually just hate levitation, oh my god. There was also a bunch of loot in the end ships that, well, could be useful, but I honestly wouldn't need it. The only thing I was here for was the actual elytra and shulker boxes themselves. Okay, bad. First elytra achieved. I packed all the stuff I didn't need in my inventory into a shulker box, and then spent the next few hours just gathering elytra. After a while, I finally had the amount that I would need. This took just way too long. And so, I returned to the overworld once more. Now with majority of the stuff I would need, I went and got an Unbreaking Villager to get a bunch of Unbreaking books. I didn't actually get enough for every single elytra, but I just enchanted the amount that I had. And with this, I had majority of the resources needed. I had even gotten totems from raids, as well as the super fast method of travel that I was going to use. I just needed fireworks, so after I spent a few days killing creepers, I'd gotten 3.5 stacks of firework rockets, which wouldn't be enough, but I could just make pit stops on the way to get more. And now, there was just one final thing that I would need. With the remainder of the sugarcane I had that I collected for fireworks, I turned it into sugar and began brewing swiftness potions. Now, it may not make sense why I need swiftness potions just yet, but like with the other things I said before, just wait, it'll all make sense once we get out to the Stripelands. And once I had brewed up enough swiftness, I packed it all into shulkers. 1 shulker full of speed 1, and 3 full of speed 2. Now, I just need to collect all my shulker boxes and everything I had into my ender chest, as well as a bit of food, as I wouldn't need any for flying unless I landed to make a pit stop. And I was ready to set off into the sky. I began flying thousands of blocks upward until I ran out of rockets. Eventually, at the peak height, I reached 17,000 blocks. And now, I would just need to glide. This was going to take a while, but I wouldn't need to do anything, and I could just keep a watch on it occasionally to make sure I didn't fall too low. Now, soon after I reached 20,000 blocks. It didn't take that long, but this was practically nowhere near as far as I needed to go. I mean, even once I reached 100,000 blocks out, this was still only 0.625% of the way. We weren't even 1% of the way there. This whole process was going to take actual weeks. I was severely underprepared. At this point, I had reached 160,000 blocks out, and I had to land, as I was out of height. There was practically not much I could do here. So, for a little bit, I just decided to use the trident and elytra to fly, but since it wasn't raining, this really wasn't an efficient method, and eventually I reached 200,000 blocks. Now, at this point, I wasn't just going to keep doing this, and luckily, I was in VC with my friend Flowerly, who gave me a suggestion. They told me to build a farm. Now, before this, I didn't really want to build a farm, but at this point, I kinda was just gonna go for it. So, I decided to build the farm, and after a while, creepers started spawning. This would allow me to repair the mending elytras, and after a lot of in-game days, I had a full shulker of firework rockets. I also waited for it to rain before beginning flying again, allowing me to travel significantly faster. And now, the journey was back on. After traveling tens of thousands of blocks, finally, on day 100 I reached 300,000 blocks out. But since this isn't a 100 days video, I have to keep going. Because remember, we're traveling 16 million blocks. Yeah, this is going to take a long time. Yet, over the next days, I kept going, traveling hundreds of thousands of blocks, eventually reaching 400,000, 500,000, and eventually 700,000. Yo, look at this terrain. This looks just so cool. Oh my. See, the reason the terrain here looks so much cooler than the terrain closer to spawn is because due to a glitch on Bedrock Edition, the further out you go, the crazier the terrain gets. This is why the Stripelands even exists, as eventually, block hitboxes begin overlapping on top of each other, allowing for this insane generation. Not too long after, I reached 900,000 blocks out. And finally, I was getting close to 1 million blocks out. Oh my. I actually have done it. I've made it 1 million blocks. Okay. Oh, yeah. This is insane. Oh, also, look at this. You can see the jitteriness. Because the blocks have begun overlapping on top of each other. The hitboxes just... This glitch is really weird, as it gets more severe the further out you go, eventually causing, obviously, the Stripelands. Yeah, even when I'm crouched, you can see the little jitteriness on the screen. But okay. We now have to do that 15 more times. And the fireworks aren't the problem. I have more in my ender chest, but the elytra, well, you see, this is really bad, because not only had it used all of the elytras in my inventory, all the ones that had mending, I'd actually already used them and repaired them at the creeper farm, meaning that I had used those twice. So this is my current elytra situation. I repaired all the ones that had mending, once again, but I couldn't travel through the overworld anymore. It was too intensive on resources. Luckily, I had a different plan. I was going to travel on top of the nether roof, as traveling in the nether is 8 times as fast as traveling in the overworld. There's just one small problem. You see, on Bedrock Edition, you can't break or place blocks on top of the nether roof. If I went up there, I would be trapped. So why did I just do that? Well, you see, actually, if you leave the game and rejoin on top of the nether roof, you'll actually be teleported back into the nether. So this was actually a viable method. And after traveling a couple 100,000 blocks, I had to make a landing. But not because I was out of resources. Actually, it was because this was the first checkpoint. The first thing I wanted to see. So, I left the game and rejoined. And I'm just in lava. Okay, this is great. It's fine. I'm in full protection 4. This is just genuinely doing no damage. You see, when rejoining the world, the game just teleports you directly below where you were. So that doesn't matter if it's lava or a solid block. Luckily, for the armor I had, I took basically no damage and was able to return to the overworld once again, but this time, there was something we needed to see. I'm in a cave. Why am I in a cave? Okay. But since the portal hadn't teleported me far enough, I had to fly just a bit further. Luckily it was raining, so I was able to use my elytra and trident method to fly to just before 3 million blocks out in the overworld. And out here, is where I would need the speed potions. As you can see, the movement without them is very jittery and kind of annoying to even move. But as soon as you drink a speed potion, it gets significantly easier to travel, as without it, it's difficult to even jump up blocks sometimes. But with that, I was now here at the first landmark that I want to show you. This is the Skulk Sinkholes. Out here, every deep dark biome spawns completely exposed with nothing but air above it, and since it was raining, it meant I could loot ancient cities for enchanted golden apples. You see, out here, the terrain isn't that dangerous, but once we get to the Stripelands, blocks don't even have collision. If I fall through, I can still fly back up with my elytra, but I would need the enchanted golden apples to make sure I didn't die. Yo, can this phantom just... where is... Yo, can it just die? There we go. Okay, bet. And now with the phantom out of the way, I was able to begin looting these ancient cities for enchanted golden apples and anything else that I could use. And by anything else, I mean just armor trims. There was literally nothing else out here that I would need. And the second a warden spawned, I could just, fly out since there was just no ceiling on these places. Yo, look at this term. Yo, wait, okay. Look how cool this is. This is honestly probably one of my favorite biomes ever. Like, oh my, this is just so cool. There's no ancient city though. Oh, never mind. OP ancient city. And after collecting a bunch of enchanted golden apples, I was ready to head back into the Nether to continue travel. And well, if I ever did need more, I could just come back and get some. Hey, run portal. Oh, well, I didn't really need that, but you know what, that's okay. Once I repaired my elytra that had mending, I returned to the Nether roof and continued flying with the rockets that I still had left. Upon running out of rockets, I returned to the overworld once again. But the first thing I found was this really cool terrain, a giant skulk biome that had cut through a lush cave. After being mesmerized by this for probably too long, I began looting desert temples for gunpowder as I didn't really want to build another creeper farm. While it really wasn't that hard, I kinda just didn't want to do it all over again. So I looted desert temples, but there was another problem becoming apparent. I had run out of food. Oh, and I also found these really weird fences that, once placed this direction, were completely useless, but then the other ones here, well, they still work. At this point, many things had already started breaking, and, well, my food situation was getting kind of dire, as I didn't expect to need this many pit stops. But I decided to capitalize on the rain, and traveled out to 5 million blocks. Out here, my cape was glitched, the camera perspective in third person was glitched, and honestly, everything was just a bit weird. This is also the point where I would need the speed potions, as here, movement is very buggy. As you can see, I literally cannot move forward. I can move side to side, but as soon as I drink the speed potion, I can now move significantly better. The movement is going to get harder and harder as we go, so I will need those. But here, I honestly didn't know what I was doing. Using Riptide on its own is not efficient this far out. And well, since it wasn't raining, using Riptide on my elytra wasn't very fast either. But I couldn't even build a creeper farm this far out, as, well, mobs can only move in one direction. This would mean I would have to gather gunpowder manually by killing creepers, looting more desert temples, and I would have to gather sugarcane manually also over the next couple of in-game days. So with my elytra mended and my rocket supply restocked, I returned to the Nether roof and began flying once more. Now the whole purpose of me setting this monumental goal was to keep me from getting bored of playing the game. But at this point I'd been flying for a while and was already getting bored of flying, which was bad since in overworld coordinates I was only 8 million blocks there, which is half of the way I needed to be. But why am I back in the overworld? Well, there was this cool shipwreck I found on land, and I also needed to hit a restock on gunpowder for rockets and food as I was running low. But that's not why I was back in the overworld. You see, at just past 8 million blocks, there is another landmark I wanted to show you. So, right over here is the point of no collision. Now you're probably confused what that even means. Well, let me explain. See how on the left the flowers are flat? Well, that's because out here, blocks don't have collision. We're not at the Stripelands yet, but let me just show you what would happen if I actually went through the floor. I'm gonna eat a notch apple just for safety, but the second I go into the ground, I start falling. I can stay in the water, but not on solid ground once I pass that point. So how am I possibly gonna make it another 8 million blocks? Well, obviously I'm gonna have to travel in the nether, but this means I'm gonna have to gather all the fireworks now, because I will not be able to make any more pit stops in the overworld until I reach the Stripelands themselves. I gathered a full shulker and even more of rockets, and I returned to the nether for what should be the last time. But since I left early and was impatient earlier, most of my elytra didn't have mending. All the ones that I could, I was going to combine to hopefully give me a little bit more flight time. But even then, this was going to take a lot of XP. So I spent a lot of time in the nether, gathering experience and repairing my elytra as much as I could. Picking up everything I needed, I went onto the roof for one last time as I began flying to the Stripelands. Many pit stops later in the nether to repair my elytra, with just a couple stacks of fireworks left in my hand, I still had a good few in my e-chest. But I was 2 million blocks out, the overworld equivalent of 16 million, which is exactly where the Stripelands begin. Once I entered the overworld, I would be in the Stripelands. Technically, I did need to go slightly farther than 2 million blocks, but I was here. I had done it. Now, it was just to make sure I could survive, because remember, I don't only want to go to the Stripelands, I want to make it out, which no one has ever done to my knowledge, as the Stripelands is 16 million blocks out, whereas solid ground is 8 million. This would be a difficult challenge to survive. But with the plan I had, I would be able to make it back to solid ground. So, I repaired all the elytra I could, which was basically just the mending ones, stocked up my inventory with everything I would need, grabbing some speed potions, as well as the saddle from earlier. Okay. This is terrifying. Because the second I go in here, I am going to be in the Stripelands. So I guess I just go for it. Okay. Go. Oh my gosh. We're here. I made it. We're at the Stripelands. Oh my god. Look at this. Look at... We're here! Yo, look at this. Oh my god. Okay, this is the amount of flight time I have. There's a few things I need to find. Well, actually there's only one thing I really need to find. Let's see if I can locate one. This is actually terrifying. I'm just genuinely flying right next to the void, basically. I had actually done it. I made it to the Stripelands. Now I would just need to find the thing that would allow me to stand. The reason I brought the saddle. But there was a problem. Okay, this area looks like half decent. I should be able to find one here. I hope. It's like, oh, I think I saw something spawn in. Yeah, there's other mobs spawning here, which is good. That means what I'm looking for can spawn. But there's also a snow biome right here. That's not what I'm looking for. And while I'm flying over the snow biome, let me explain to you how the Stripelands works. You see, since the blocks are overlapping, the only way to travel in forward and backward directions is using speed. Anything that speeds you up, an elytra, a trident, speed 2, and this is what I was going to use. You see, in my testing that I had done, I found that horses having bigger hitboxes could stand out in the stripes. Well, at least I thought they could. I'm out of my golden apple effect, or my enchanted golden apple effects. But I'm not gonna eat another one yet. I'll eat another one when I get close to the ground looking for this. Like, mobs are spawning, and when I was testing, this mob that I'm looking for did spawn out here. Unless they just don't spawn this far out, but they should. I don't see why they wouldn't. I'm just not seeing one. Wait, what? That's right. That horse just fell through the ground. I just saw... Since blocks out here don't have collision, I wouldn't be able to stand in a portal long enough to go back to the nether. And, well, the amount of fireworks and elytra I had would not allow me to travel 8 million blocks back to survive. That's why I was going to use a horse, because the horse could just stand out here. But I must have been wrong. Something I did in my testing was either different, or Mojang had updated horses since then. But I had spent literal weeks on this project. I wasn't just going to die out here. I was going to make sure I survived. It's also nighttime now, and they don't spawn during the night. But that didn't matter. If I could get out of the Stripelands to a no collision zone, I knew horses still spawned there for a fact, so I could still get one there. This is just actually so nerve-wracking. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna need to fly until it's daytime again. I just need to get to the edge of the Stripelands. When they spawn out here, they spawn already falling, which is not a thing I accounted for. I didn't think that would happen. Now, it was getting close to morning. Why is this the eternal snow biome? What is this? Hello? Please, rain. Yes, okay. Thank you. I may be safe for the minute, but... well, not really, probably. Okay, yeah, there we go. Hello? Please fly forward. Okay. This is just the most terrifying thing ever. I'm not taking any risks with this elytra. The second it goes to this red... well, actually, I haven't been taking risks with the elytra at any point throughout this. The second it goes to red, I've just kind of like swapped it out for a new one, even though there's another layer can go down before it fully breaks. But I'm not doing that. Okay. We made it. We made it. Okay. Okay. I hate that this is a snow biome. I hate that this is actually a snow biome. I was out of the Stripelands, but to remind you, blocks still don't have collision for another 8 million blocks. I needed a horse because if my elytra and rockets ran out, I wouldn't be able to survive. I didn't even test for this. On my test world, I had rain off. How am I possible? Mobs are spawning. Okay, there's a cow there. Okay, I'll let it go down one more layer on the... oh my god. Oh my god. Please don't tell me it despawned when I flew away there for a sec. It's there. It's there. It's there. It's there. Okay. Nope. 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 Oh my god. Oh my god. That was terrifying. I need to be extremely careful with this. Yes! 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 Oh my god. And it's a slow horse. No, are you serious? This horse is slow. No! No, 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 no. Oh my god, no. I need to find a different horse. This horse is actually too slow. Another thing that I had completely forgotten to account for was some horses are slower than others. If the horse was too slow, it couldn't travel through the collisions, meaning I would have to find another horse. After I found one, I wanted to test if my theory was correct and that was just a fluke, or somehow I had done my testing wrong. I should just be able to walk across the stripes. If everything in my testing adds up. Also, look at the way the horse jumps here. So goofy. Okay. Oh, this is terrifying. What? Okay. Go. Now. What? Okay. Well, there goes the horse. It seems I've done something in my testing wrong, and only some horses, or there's only certain ways to move out there. This was quite bad, because not only did I fail to walk out in the Stripelands, while I did manage to swim out there and fly around, this wasn't walking. But this also meant I had lost the saddle, and now I would have to fly back. But this wasn't enough resources to fly out of here. So how was I gonna make it out? Make it back and survive. Which may be pretty hard to do because, well, before I was just going to use the horse to travel. But now I need to travel 8 million blocks with the resources I have on me. And I can't place down a shulker. I can't go to the nether. And I can't do anything else. And I couldn't even log out of the game. You see, obviously I'd done this journey over the course of a couple weeks because it would be impossible to do in one sitting. And I had gotten quite lucky, as about a quarter of the entire journey it had been raining, but it wasn't raining now when I needed it most. Okay, I may have made a huge oversight. This is actually terrifying now, because now if I make any mistake, it's actually over. Okay, I can land in the water here, right? Yes. I think I have a plan. If I can build a portal in the water, but actually, how am I going to build a portal in the water without the water destroying the portal? Building a portal underwater isn't a difficult task when blocks have collision, because you can just surround blocks around yourself and drain the water. But if there's nothing I can stand on, that means I have to stand in the water while also standing in the portal. I guess I go to the coast and try to grab some. Okay. I would also need to gather blocks, as I had dropped all my netherrack from earlier. But grabbing the blocks would be really hard, as, well, they were falling through the world, and I could too at any moment. This is so scary. Oh my god. No, wait, okay, I'm gonna go over here. I see one. Okay. Okay. Now I just need to somehow miraculously put the plan I have just made into action. Filling the portal with stone and surrounding it on both sides, this would drain the water inside. But now I somehow need to break those blocks inside without refilling the inside of the portal with water. This was going to be a challenge. Okay, the magma is like terrifying. I don't want to break the blocks behind it. I just somehow need to do this like genuinely perfectly. Oh my god. I need to break this dirt now. I now literally just need to hope. No, it's not working. Oh my god. Yes! Oh my god, where am I? I'm in the nether. Oh my god. After over an hour of flying, swimming, and not being able to stand on solid ground, I had made it to the nether. I had escaped. I honestly didn't think I was going to be able to do it. Now, most of the footage of me flying around, I cut out. And that goes the same for the rest of the video. Because, well, the flying footage is honestly quite boring. And that's also because I mainly make shorter videos. Well, at least on this channel. And this is also the longest video I've ever made. Because I don't think I'm that good at editing the longer videos. But honestly, I really enjoyed making this video. And so, if you did too, please do subscribe, as it would really mean a lot, and it would show me that you want to see more longer videos like this. And while I did say the flying footage was boring, I said I was going to make it back to the main world. So that's what I'm going to do. After emptying my inventory and returning to the overworld, I started looking for an end portal, because with this, I could travel right back to spawn. Upon finding the portal room, I needed to return to Nether to get more blaze powder for more Eyes of Ender. But I also made splash potions of speed, and that's because my friend asked me to return a sheep back with me. And well, while I technically didn't return the sheep all the way from the Stripelands, this was the furthest reasonable point I could get a sheep at and bring it back. Plus, if I did decide to continue playing this world in the future, I would have a little reminder of how far I made it. And so, after bringing the sheep to the end, and making a bridge, I had done it. So if you enjoyed, please leave a like, and hey, thanks for watching. I'll see you all next time.